Howdy folks, and welcome to another Taste of Gameplay video, this time for the American Tier 6 Tech Tree Submarine, the Cachalot. As always, these videos are designed to give you a sample of the gameplay of the ship, not to be an exhaustive analysis. I recommend the Wargaming Wiki or other content creators. So, I was kind of dreading making this video, not so much because I wasn't looking forward to playing the Cachalot, though I'm not much of a submarine player, but mostly because I thought this would just be a really boring video, and I was actually really worried that I would play really poorly, because it's very easy to play really poorly in the Cachalot, or sometimes even if you play well, to just have games where kind of nothing happens. One of the reasons I picked the Cachalot was because I think I've mentioned before, I use this tool called Wow's Numbers, and among other things, they track statistics like the average amount of damage that players do in these ships. Now, to be fair, it's usually weighted towards the better players because you have to opt into it, I think, if I remember correctly. So a lot of beginning players probably just don't even put their data up there. Anyway, point is, of all the tier 6 submarines, I believe the Cachalot has the lowest average damage per game, and it might be the lowest tier 6 ship, period. It's 19,225. And that's the average damage. That means 50% of the time people are doing less than 19,000 damage per game in the Cachalot. And if you think about submarines, they don't really do a lot other than do damage. That's one of my big problems with them as a class. They don't have a lot of utility. I mean, they can spot, which is cool, but they don't have any guns. They don't have any radar. They don't have any smoke. They don't zoop around the map. The Cachalot is at a blistering 27 knots, which is actually a lot better than some of the other submarines. So if you play an entire game and you do like 10,000 damage, what did you get done? But I can kind of understand why the damage numbers are low, because the only armament they have is torpedoes. The Cachalot gets 4 launchers in the front. It only loads 2 of them every 45 seconds, 42 seconds. And the torpedoes do a max damage of like 7,300 damage. So anyway, I was really worried that this would just be like a giant nothing burger. But actually, I mean, this is not exactly gripping gameplay, but it at least I'll hit a few things. I made my goal coming into the match to just do more than 19,225 damage. And spoiler alert, I'm going to do a lot more than 19,225 damage. The torpedoes are, I mean, they're all right. Yeah, if they were torpedoes on a destroyer, you'd be like, yeah, okay, cool. I mean, they're pretty fast, which is nice. They're 82 knots. Of course, the gimmick, the magic, and I do say magic because it's magic, right? There's no science behind this one, is this sonar firing acoustic thingamajobber, which violates every law of physics available. I sort of blew it on these. I thought he was moving forward faster than he was, so these are all going to expire. But yeah, anyway, let's talk about Wow's numbers and PR and average damage for a second. So in baseball, they have this statistic called WAR, which is wins above replacement, which is basically the idea of, okay, maybe you're a good player, but so is everybody in MLB. Like, how many games more would a team win with you on the field versus just getting a random player? And there's a number that is used in WoWs sometimes. It's not an official number. It's not something that Wargaming calculates, but it's called PR, personal rating, I believe. And it's basically some kind of measure of how well you played in a game. I mean, there are other measures like average XP that you earned, average damage you did, but PR, it's just one of those numbers that some people like to track. There are tools you can download that will tell you what the PR is of everybody in a match, so you know what to expect before you start. That's where phrases like the Unicum and Super Unicum players came from, because those are like rankings in the PR listing. Anyway, a huge part we'll go into PR later. We'll do a whole thing on PR, and one of the more boring ships will break down PR. But a huge part of PR, like an enormous amount of the calculation, is just how much damage you did in a match. But it's not an absolute amount of damage, because that would be a little silly. It's compared against the average damage recorded on this Wow's numbers site, the average damage that people who are tracking their data did in that ship. So, if you do 20,000 damage in a Cachalot, that's average. If you did 20,000 damage in a gross occur first, that would be bad. You know, if you did 20,000 damage in a Smolensk, that might be really bad. So anyway, when I looked up the Cachalot, it was 19,225. And spoiler alert, I'm going to do, what was it? 79,445 damage, which honestly blew my mind. This is one of the more unexpected. I guess I'd say I'm proud of my performance in this game, except that it kind of is like, this is one of the things about submarines. I mean, obviously there's some skill required. There's certain techniques. This is not a video about how to play submarines, but there are things you can do, you know, like firing the ping at the last minute. But at the end of the day, you do kind of have to rely on the enemy players to just either not know or not be able to execute on how to dodge the torpedoes, because there is a way to do it, right? If you are just navigating in completely open water and the only thing you're doing is avoiding submarine torpedoes and you know they're coming in advance, I assert that you can basically avoid them essentially 100% of the time. You know, one of the things about submarine torpedoes is they often have really bad detection, and the detection on these is 2.2 kilometers. And the homing, while it is amazing and magical, it actually stops homing around about 2.5 kilometers. I forget what the value is. So what that means is you can reliably trick the torpedoes into anticipating a course that you then change at the last second. And if you have an even remotely maneuverable battleship and you're prepared to make the right turns, you can basically use your DCP at the last second to get rid of the sonar ping and just turn the rudder over hard, and you will avoid the torpedoes 100% of the time. So anyway, my point is there's lots of things you can do in a battleship. What you can't do in a battleship is just sit there and pretend the submarine's going to miss, because the way the acoustic torpedoes work, they are never going to miss. They will always hit you. Is like the computer. It's a video game. The computer is literally turning them into your ship. They will hit you every single time. And, you know, even though you only get 2 every 42 seconds and that's only 14,000 damage, I mean, that adds up, you know. 3 sets of those torpedoes and all of a sudden you're taking 42,000 damage, minus torpedo protection, of course. But then you have to add in the floods. I think I'm going to get 14,000 damage in this game just from floods, you know, because submarine torpedoes do flood a lot. They have high flood percentages. All torpedoes do, but submarines in particular. So if you just kind of sit there and let the sub shoot at you over and over, I mean, then the reverse is true, right? It doesn't take any skill really on the part of the sub player. They just stand there and they launch torpedoes at you one after another. And, you know, yes, you can fight back with the ASW planes, but there's some tricks to that. You know, the biggest one being you don't launch the pings in the direction of travel. You make sure you're traveling 90 degrees to the ping, because the ping is very inaccurate. Anyway, again, this is not a video about how to play submarines, but point is, you are somewhat relying on the opposing players to just be paid actors. And luckily in this game, I got people that either don't know how subs work or didn't feel like avoiding the torpedoes. I don't know. I mean, you should not hit 14 torpedoes on essentially 2 battleships in a Cachalot in a game. That's not a thing that should happen. You know, and even still, even though I hit 14 torpedoes, it was kind of interesting and exciting a little bit. It's certainly better than not hitting 14 torpedoes. But I can't say this is like gripping gameplay, right? I mean, I don't know how this is to watch, but in terms of playing, it's okay. It's, you know, but God, I think I'd probably rather do just about any other class in the game. I mean, even aircraft carriers, I think, are way more just mentally engaging than this. I mean, this is just like, I don't know, like, what am I even doing at this point? Just staying at the correct ranges, making sure my battery doesn't run out and I'm in a weird position. I mean, there's a moment at the end of this game where I'm going to use my submarine surveillance to help my team kill the enemy sub. Sub-on-sub combat is one of the worst parts of the game. It's incredibly hard to hit an enemy sub with your torpedoes. It's just the mechanics of that in exchange are not terribly well thought through. Anyway, I don't think subs are toxic the same way aircraft carriers are toxic. I don't think they're nearly as strong, and the fact that they can't spot even as well as destroyers, it kind of limits their usefulness to me. So in that sense, I don't think they're a problem in the game. I just think they're not very fun. I just think they're not terribly interesting, especially these early tier ones, man. Like this Cachalot. I mean, I don't know, you know, like yeah, it's cool to do 78,000 damage, but I've done way more damage than that in a Pensacola, and I had a lot more fun doing it. I don't know. Yeah. And you know, for every game like this in submarines, there's another game where you just the enemy plays well and is prepared for you, and you just can't get anything done. You just dance around and launch a bunch of torpedoes, and they all miss. And like, if these battleships ran away from me and were kiting, I mean, it becomes incredibly hard to hit anything. And then, of course, the problem, as I talked about in the, I think it was the Xinjiang Guo 14 video, is because launching torpedoes and doing damage is kind of all you have, the game just becomes really dull. I mean, if you're just, you know, plus submarines are often very slow. I think the Undine, which is another tier 6 submarine, has slightly better torpedoes, slightly more of them, but it goes 20 knots top speed. I think it's like 13 knots when it's underwater. So, I mean, you're not going to reposition. You're not going to help your team out by going to a different flank or capping or spotting. You're just going to spin in place and launch torpedoes. And if the torpedoes hit, at least you get the fun and enjoyment of that, right? But like, if you can't even hit the torpedoes, which sometimes happens through no fault of your own, I mean, when you get a really quality player in a ship like, I don't know, the Smolensk or the Colbert, they're going to do some damage. I mean, there's just no way that you're going to keep them from doing some effective battle impact damage and spotting and Lord only knows what else. I mean, even in the worst possible game, even in the worst blowout, they're going to get some things done. You're not going to be able to stop them from doing some level of combat. But if they're driving a Cachalot, I think you can just lock them out of the game. I mean, you can basically just make it so they can't even play. I mean, you can just run away from them and just not get hit by their torpedoes. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe a really good sub player can chime in the comments and be like, no, you don't understand. There's this and that. But I mean, I'm not a bad submarine player. I'm not particularly good. But I don't like, if the enemy team makes it their goal for you just not to have any impact, I think you're just not going to have any impact. You know, I mean, all they really need to do is like run away from you, especially in one of these early tier slow submarines. And sometimes they do that. I mean, I have played games in like the Cachalot or the Undine where I get 0 damage. I get a PR of 0. I get nothing. Luckily, however, this is not one of them, and you do not have to sit through a video like that. So I hope that was interesting and engaging. At least I got some damage in. That was a 1 badge for the Cachalot, which is incredible. 1500 XP. So yeah, there you go. That's the Cachalot for you. I will see you guys in the next one.